My narcissistic sister tried to take me down, and our parents just laughed it off. Now everyone realizes how messed up she is. So here's the backstory. I'm smack in the middle of a pretty big family. I'm the second youngest out of 5 kids. My relationship with my sister, who I'll refer to as Sarah, has always been a bit rocky, largely because of our 5-year age difference. While many siblings grow closer despite such gaps, for Sarah and me, it just added to the tension. Growing up, I often felt like an annoying tag-along rather than a cherished younger sister. Sarah seemed to find my presence irritating, especially when I had any say in family decisions, like picking the movie on movie night. Fast forward to this year. I'm now 18, about to turn 19, and Sarah recently turned 24. The big news? Sarah got engaged. Her boyfriend, who we'll call Y, decided to propose in a pretty spectacular way during a family outing to the beach in early June. He went all out, setting up a scene with big white letters and rose petals on the sand, a real showstopper. Everyone was there. My parents, all the siblings, and me. When we arrived and Sarah saw the setup, she was ecstatic. She said yes, of course, and the atmosphere was filled with joy and celebration. Our littlest sibling, only 4 years old, didn't quite grasp the situation but enjoyed the day regardless. But here's where the fairy tale ends and the drama begins. Post-proposal, Sarah seemed to transform overnight into a full-on bridezilla, and it seems my mom might have unwittingly encouraged her behavior. Since I'm her sister, Sarah automatically included me in the bridal party, which meant I got a front row seat to all the chaos that ensued. Here's a breakdown of the demands and plans that Sarah has laid out, turning her wedding preparations into a bit of a nightmare for those involved. 1. Bridesmaids' expenses. Dress. Each bridesmaid is expected to purchase their own dress. The cost? A whopping $300 for a blush pink dress that matches her color theme. Shoes and styling. On top of the dress, we need to buy specific blush pink shoes and pay for our own hair and makeup on the day, which isn't cheap. 2. Pre-wedding events. Bachelorette spa day. Sarah has planned a luxurious spa day that costs each bridesmaid $800. It's meant to be a day of relaxation, but the price tag is anything but relaxing. Bachelorette weekend in Toronto. For her bachelorette party, Sarah wants to fly out to Toronto and stay at the fancy Fairmont Hotel for a weekend. Just the hotel stay is estimated to cost around $1,000 per person. Dress fittings. We're required to attend multiple dress fittings, not just for ourselves, but primarily to support her. Each bridesmaid is also responsible for paying for their own dress alterations, which could add up to another $300. 3. Wedding planning involvement, cake and catering tastings. Sarah expects all bridesmaids to be present for selecting the wedding cake, the venue, and the catering, which includes paying $25 each just to participate in the tastings. 4. Wedding attendance costs. Reservation fee. All guests, including the bridal party, are asked to pay $150 to reserve their spots at the wedding. Gift expectations. Gifts must be either cash, a check, or an item strictly from her registry list. Sarah has even created a spreadsheet to track who gives what, and she's made it clear she will return any gifts that don't align with her specified wants. As you can imagine, all these demands have led to quite a bit of tension and frustration among family and friends. My mom tries to pass off Sarah's behavior as mere bride anxiety, but I see it as a continuation of her lifelong need to control every situation to the nth degree. She's planning a lavish winter wedding at a ski resort in December, which only adds to the complexity and expense of the event. Given all the drama and the outrageous demands, I thought it might be interesting to share updates as things progress. Who knows what bridezilla moments Sarah will have next? Thanks for reading, and stay tuned for more tales from the front line of this wedding saga. Edit. So my sister really took her wedding planning to an extreme level that kind of blew everyone's minds. In not such a good way. She's always been kind of bossy, but with her wedding, it's like she turned into the queen of control land. Let me spill all the details about what she's been demanding from everyone, especially us bridesmaids. 1. Beauty regimen. Sarah decided that all her bridesmaids need to look absolutely perfect for her big day. And by perfect, I mean she set up this super strict beauty schedule that we all have to follow. We have to go to hair and skincare appointments every 6 weeks to make sure our hair and skin are flawless. And yep, we have to pay for all this out of our own pockets. 2. Tattoo coverage. Anyone who has tattoos? Well, Sarah says those need to be covered up. The bridesmaid dresses are designed to cover from neck to ankles and wrists, so that does the job. But here's the twist. Sarah herself will be showing off her own tattoos with a sleeveless dress and her colorful hairstyle. It's like she wants to make sure she's the only one who stands out. 3. Hair rules. If any of us have hair colors that aren't what Sarah considers natural, we have to change it. That means either dyeing our hair or, get this, wearing a wig. And of course, we have to pay for that too. 4. Dress sizes and body shaming. The dresses for the bridesmaids only come in sizes 0 to 10. Sarah thinks that's plenty, but it's definitely not cool because not everyone fits into that range. I'm a size 12, and guess what? Sarah started calling me fat and even sent me a keto diet book. Can you believe that? 5. Communication rules. Here's a weird one. None of the wedding vendors, like the people taking care of the food, cake, or decorations, are allowed to talk directly to Sarah or her fiancé. Nope, they have to go through us, the bridesmaids. Sarah set up a special email just for wedding stuff, and we all have access to it. She expects us to know exactly what she wants without having to ask her, which is pretty much impossible and drives my mom nuts. 6. Guest deposits. Oh, and the guests? They have to pay a $150 deposit just to secure their spot at the wedding. If they don't pay, they can't come. Plus, we have to check if they're buying something from the wedding registry or giving cash, and it all has to be tracked. All of this has just been super stressful and honestly, pretty upsetting. It's like Sarah is trying to script her perfect day without caring about anyone else's feelings or budgets. My mom is super stressed about all these rules and costs, too. She's worried about the guests and us, wondering why everything has to be so controlled and expensive. Edit 2. So after sharing all the crazy wedding drama and the super controlling stuff my sister Sarah has been pulling, a lot of you have been reaching out. It's made me realize that maybe my family dynamics aren't exactly what you'd call normal. It's kind of eye-opening, you know? I always thought this was just how families are, but turns out it's not really typical for things to be this intense or stressful. After reading all your comments and messages, I've decided to take some big steps to sort things out for myself. First things first, I'm planning to look into getting some therapy. My university offers counseling services, and I think it could really help me handle all this stress and maybe understand my family better. It's a bit scary to think about opening up to a stranger, but I think it's necessary. Another thing I'm going to do is try to move into my university residence a bit earlier than planned. Being at home is just too much right now, especially with all the wedding stuff and family pressure. I need a little space to breathe and think, and moving into residence early could give me that peace. Some of you have been super helpful with practical advice too. One person slid into my DMs with some really good tips about getting more control over my personal stuff. They suggested I should get my mom off my bank account because, believe it or not, she's still linked to it. That's pretty wild considering I'm 18 now and should probably start handling my own money. I'm planning to head to the bank to sort this out. I'll need to talk to the bank people about how to make my account just mine, which feels like a big adult move. The same person also reminded me to grab important documents like my birth certificate from my family files. This is super important because having those documents means I can be more independent and not have to rely on my mom or dad for every little thing. Speaking of parents, I texted my mom today while I was at work. I asked if she and my dad could sit down and have a serious chat with me about all this. I suggested we talk tonight when Sarah is over at her fiance's place, so it's just us. No distractions, no interruptions. I think it might help them understand where I'm coming from if I can talk to them calmly and maybe even show them this post. I want them to see how all this feels from my perspective, and maybe, just maybe, they'll get why I need to make these changes. So, yeah, that's the plan. It's a lot to tackle, but with all your support and advice, I feel like I can actually do this. I'm hoping this can be a fresh start of sorts, or at least a step towards something better. Thanks for all the support. It really means a lot, and I'll keep you updated on how things go. Edit 3. So, I've been thinking a lot about everything you guys have been saying in the comments, and you're totally right. Things with my family are definitely not normal. It's weird how you can grow up thinking all families are like yours, but then you find out that's not really how it's supposed to be. It's a lot to take in. I was at work today, just doing my usual stuff, but I couldn't stop thinking about all the things you all pointed out. So I decided to call my aunt. Now, just so you know, my aunt is pretty cool. She's actually my godmother too, and she's always had my back. She's one of the few people who totally gets how out there my mom can be. She even says my mom is nuts. We had a long talk on the phone about everything, not just the crazy wedding demands from my sister Sarah, but also how my parents have been treating me differently from my siblings since I was little. That's what you call favoritism, where parents sort of pick favorites among their kids, and it's not fair. My aunt really listened and understood where I was coming from, which felt awesome, because sometimes it feels like I'm overreacting, but she confirmed I wasn't. My aunt thinks I need to sit down and have a serious heart-to-heart with my parents. Not just about the wedding stuff, but about how things have been since I was a kid. She said it's important to clear the air and let them know how I've been feeling. Honestly, that's kind of scary to think about, but she's right. She also said she'd be on standby for me, which is super reassuring. Here's the plan. Once my shift at work is done, I'm going to head home and pack a quick overnight bag. My aunt said she'll swing by and pick it up so I can have some essentials ready, just in case I need to crash at her place for a bit after the talk with my parents. You never know how these conversations will go, and it's good to be prepared. Relevant comments before the update. Overall, she's going to have to accept that finances rule a lot of people's lives, and that if she's not going to come back down to earth, it's going to keep people from being able to participate like you hope. That's what I tried to tell her, but she won't listen. Her fiance makes 120K plus a year as a tech dude, and she's an accountant making 100K herself, so it's easy for her to afford this. Tell your mom and sister that you won't participate until someone pays all of your costs. Your mom should not try to keep the peace when your sister is a raging harpy. I hope her fiance backs out. Okay, he won't. He loves her spice. He's a very calm man now, so they match really well. He's the only one who can calm her down. How does his family feel about the admission fee to his wedding? It's normal on his side of the family. They say it's normal in Italian families, but I just found out it isn't. This is insane. I completely agree with you. The problem for me is that I can't afford it without going into debt for my student loans. Interest on student loans right now is 26%, so I'm scared to be in debt. Tell your mom you don't have the sort of money being a bridesmaid for a sister will involve. Tell sis she is free to include you outside of the wedding party. You will probably find that you will lead the charge. She has 13 bridesmaids, 12 bridesmaids, 1 male, and it's to match the fraternity class of her fiancé. He had 13 people he became brothers with in his class. I don't know what it means, but it's special. So if I drop out, 2 of the guys would need to walk together. Let the opposite important comment by OP. I have talked to her. She says it's my job as her sister to save up. Mom and dad are paying for the wedding almost $100,000, so they can't give me the $2,000 for my expenses. I'm going to university in the fall, and my tuition is $17,000. Weird parental choices here. 100K for a wedding, but let a child pay their own tuition. Did your sister go to college? I'd be asking my parents to pay my college fees, etc., and telling them I don't want a $100,000 wedding equal to the kids. Also, if they can spring for $100,000, then what's another two? AP tuition has always been ours to pay. Mom and dad saved money for everyone's wedding or honey. Update 1. So where to start? A week ago, I was all set to update you all on the situation with my sister and the crazy wedding demands. But life, as usual, threw a curveball. We had planned to sit down as a family and talk everything out. But just as we were about to get into it, my mom suddenly said she felt really sick and went to bed, super early, around 6 p.m. This wasn't like her, so it threw everyone off. Her feeling unwell lasted longer than just that night, which meant putting our big family discussion on hold. In the meantime, chaos ensued as we had to help my sister move into her fiancé's place. It was all-consuming and distracting. By the time we got her settled in and everything calmed down, it seemed like my parents had completely forgotten about our planned discussion. It just slipped their minds, pushed aside like it wasn't important. We finally circled back to our big talk 2 days ago. I needed a whole day afterward just to process everything we talked about because, honestly, it was a lot to take in. Here's the kicker. My dad didn't know half of what was going on. He was under the impression that he was just covering some of the wedding expenses, like my sister's dress and part of the honeymoon. But there was so much more he wasn't aware of. Let me back up a bit and explain the money situation, which is kind of at the heart of a lot of these issues. My parents set up accounts with $25K for each of us kids for when we turned 19 or started post-secondary education. It was meant to be our money to use as we saw fit. I just turned 19, and my dad was getting ready to transfer my share to me when all this blew up. But here's where it gets complicated. Shortly after my sister got engaged, she had this big heart-to-heart with my mom where she played the victim card, saying she felt left out and overlooked. My mom, bless her, tends to be a bit too soft-hearted and ended up feeling really guilty. This led to a decision that, unbeknownst to my dad, would stir up a lot of drama. Since my 2 older brothers are in the military and their major expenses like education and housing are covered, they hadn't touched their $25K. This left $50K just sitting there. Combine that with the $25K from my sister's account and my $25K, and suddenly, there's a lot of money in play. My mom decided to redirect some of this money to fund my sister's increasingly lavish wedding plans. My mom figured that since I had saved up $17,000 on my own, she could just give me $15K later for something like a car, a house down payment, or even my own wedding, assuming that would be enough. What she didn't realize was how this would affect everyone else, especially me. Now, about my sister, she's always been kind of manipulative. She knows exactly how to play on people's emotions. Thanks to some insightful comments from you all and resources from various subreddits, I've started to see the patterns clearly. My sister used my mom's guilt over past issues to her advantage. Here's some important background. When I was born, My mom suffered from severe postpartum depression and had to be treated away from home for 4 months. This left my dad to juggle everything with a newborn, two young boys, and my sister, who was about 5 at the time. We had a nanny to help out, but obviously the nanny couldn't replace the emotional connection with our mom. This affected my sister deeply. She felt abandoned and left out, especially since the nanny was more focused on taking care of me as a baby. When my mom returned, instead of being angry with her, my sister directed all her bitterness and resentment towards me. I became the symbol of why she lost her mom's attention. It even escalated to her trying to smother me with a pillow once, though our family later laughed it off as her way of coping. This should have been a red flag, but everyone just saw it as a quirky family story. As we grew up, my sister's tactics evolved from fighting over toys to manipulating situations to get more significant things, like trips or even controlling how the family money was spent. This latest scenario with the wedding funds is just the latest chapter in a long history of her using emotional manipulation to get her way. Throughout all this, my dad has been my rock. He's been more like a best friend than just a dad. My relationship with my sister was okay for a few years when I was younger, but it soured again when my mom unexpectedly got pregnant with our youngest sister. This new pregnancy somehow reignited all my sister's old resentments and insecurities, and once again, I became the target of her anger. So that's the full story, as complex and messy as it is. Sharing this has been both tough and therapeutic. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to navigate all this family drama, but having a place to talk about it and getting your support means the world to me. I'll definitely keep updating as things develop. Thanks for sticking with me through this long update. Update 2. So now that the background information is complete, here's what happened. A day after my sister moved out, I asked my mom and dad to please finally have the conversation with me. Mom was feeling better, so we sat down and started talking. I told them how I felt, how much of a financial toll it would be on me, how it wasn't fair, etc. Well, Dad blew up. He didn't know about the $100,000 or the things the sisters were doing, etc. He didn't like the fact that Mom used a lot of your father, and I agreed to talk even though they had an I showed group chat screenshots. We worked through the wedding issue I don't have to attend and the $25 for me issue. Dad is signing it over early. When I was asked to go to my room for a bit because Dad and Mom wanted to talk. They settled the budget issue on their own. Dad then asked why I didn't feel comfortable talking to them earlier, so I showed them this post. My dad snapped. He immediately called my sister and told her to come here ASAP because he needed to talk to her and would not accept excuses. She said she would be here in 4 hours because she was with her fiancé and his parents. Dad pressed and she hung up and walked off. Dad told me to go to my room once again, but to leave my phone so they could go over the post and see the comments. I don't know exactly what happened, but Mom came to talk to me later. She then told me about the PPD, etc. I didn't know about it earlier. We solved our issues, and I finished by asking if my sister would go to therapy because Mom was convinced that the 4-month leave caused this stuff in her. She said she tried, but couldn't force it. I told her if her sister doesn't go, I'm going NC with her, and possibly LC with Mom. Dad then joined the conversation and assured me I would get my money and I wouldn't have to go to a wedding if I didn't want it. Since her sister is charging $150 per guest, she can pay for her grandson's wedding through that soon-to-be bill and his family aren't paying for HD. Apparently so, now they have to. Or his sister doesn't get to have her ski hill wedding. Speaking of the $150 fee, y'all were right. It was her sister who concocted the whole thing and told Mom it was an Italian thing. We talked to Sister Mill when she dropped her sister off. Sister Doesn't Drop a Mill was shocked that Sister had said that there is apparently a money dance, but there is no $150. So on to what happened when my sister came back. She came after 5 hours, and while Mill was there, she was sweet as pie. But when Mill left Olork the gates to hell, she demanded why Dad disturbed the peaceful evening and demanded he drive her back. Dad said he didn't care, and to sit down she refused, and they fought. Finally, she sat down after Dad started pulling out various tricks, including money or telling Mill about her true nature, which I guess her fiancé hasn't seen much of. I was excused from my room again. There was a lot of angry yelling back and forth, and a lot of manipulation from her sister, including threats of LC and C or not seeing possible grandkids in the future. She was trying to get Mom to go back to the original plan, the $100,000 plan, and Mom and Dad weren't budging. The fighting continued and stopped when my dad yelled, saying Mom isn't her punching bag and her PPD is not her fault, and if she was that angry about it to go to therapy. After that, I was called back down and we went over all the issues, starting with the veto book. My sister, trying to defend me, saying I was fat and lazy, but my dad defended me, Sister started to cry, and Mom told Dad to be a little softer, which he did. We finally discussed everything, and I felt like part of the family instead of like a punching bag. Sister eventually got an Uber and left because she was being attacked. We're going to wait until Christmas time when brothers are back in town so we can all discuss what we need as a family to go forward and be healthy, but it will most likely be therapy or cutting her out. Mom and Dad are still figuring out the full budget issue with my sisters and lost. My parents told them that for such a wedding to happen, everyone would need to contribute in laws. Agreed that $100,000 for a wedding is insane. Last I heard, her sister will get her $15K for the wedding, which is basically $5K because of the $10K dress since it's already ordered. The other $10K is being held for something tangible. And then her in-laws are being generous and helping with $15K 10 to the wedding, 5 to the honeymoon. As for my schooling, Dad and I are going to the bank tomorrow, and we're going to pay the cancellation fee for the loan. I had to take out. The loan only officially starts when I start school, so thankfully the cancellation fee is very small. My dad is paying for the fee because he admits that I should have never had to take the loan out. My parents agreed that my first year of university, along with housing costs, would not come out of my budget $17K or $25K, so they would pay themselves. The full amount that they budgeted for. Me is going to be transferred into something called a TFSA for later in life. Well, Mom and I still have a somewhat rocky relationship, and my sister absolutely hates me. She blamed me for everything and said that I had caused irreparable damage to her relationship with her fiancé and in-laws. Because of this, she's been me from the wedding and from her life. I honestly don't care. I don't really see it as losing a sister. I see it as losing a bully. I made a promise to my mom and dad that I would never treat my younger sister like that. I'm going to be the role model she deserves, and I'm going to be her protector. Like my brothers and my father were for me, I think I covered everything that needs to be covered. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm very thankful for the subreddit for teaching me what a real family is about and for teaching me about boundaries and communication. I have an amazing life, you gorgeous humans. Updated relevant comments. One thing I want to bring up that seemed to be blown over. Your sister tried to murder you. That is a big deal. I hope that in therapy you take the time to talk about this. It's a huge deal. It's traumatic. And the fact that your parents used it as a funny excuse is not okay. It's awful. And I sincerely hope that you really force your mom to address why she allowed this behavior to happen. Why didn't she put her sister in therapy right then and there? It's important to get answers to these questions. And your sister owes you an apology. You may also want to consider making sure her fiancé knows about the money she demanded. He deserves to know what he is getting into. Opie. Mom and Dad didn't make it a funny story at first. It was the sister mainly saying, "Oh, it was a joke. It was a joke." When we were older, of course, because my parents never left me alone with my older sister. Either they were in the room, or my eldest brother was beside me. It was only after I was 10, 11, and my sister and I started to have an okay relationship that the joke was made. I forgave her, and honestly thought it was a joke. I now know it wasn't, and she has hated me since day one. As for the therapy, I forgot to mention she did go from 7 to 10. Originally, it was just a doctor who spoke to her once a month from 4.5-ish to 6.5-ish. But she learned how to say exactly what they wanted to hear, so they discontinued the need for visits. My dad was okay with this. My mom wanted the second opinion and found the best child psychologist in Alberta for my sister, and they took her on for 3, almost 4 years towards the end. They said they taught her everything and helped her with trauma, etc., but I feel like she just became really good at telling them what they wanted to hear. As for her fiancé, he knows I texted him a long text and voice message, and we talked on the phone for 2 hours. At the end, he just kind of shrugged it off. In hindsight, I think he was in on it. He also displays some concerning traits. Do your parents feel like they failed your sister by letting her go on like this for so long? She was neglected and tried smothering you with a pillow, and it was a family show. I feel like your parents are dumping all the mistakes they made on her when they're just as involved. I definitely do think it played a role. She showed signs of some concerning behavior as a toddler, pushing, biting, or purposely hurting my brothers or kids in daycare. But I think the thing that really broke her was not having a mom-dad to the boys. The nanny did me mainly, and her and my aunt handled the motherly things for her. But she's no replacement for mom. The problem is that while things did get better when I was 12, sister talked to me about why she hated me, how she thought I was taking up attention, etc. At 14, she started hating me again because little sister was in mom's belly. I do know that my sister went to therapy from ages 7, 10 because she had a grudge against mom, and when mom stepped in to protect her, then 3-6-year-old me, my sister would take it out on the house mom, or would yell at the dog. Yeah, Your dad doesn't just get out the blame by saying he decided not to raise her because he wants to raise the boys, the same way your mom doesn't get to cater to her every demand. This is literally awful parenting you're describing, which made your sisters insane. I understand you like your dad, but from her perspective, I think they both created her and are a huge part of the reason you spent your life being bullied. They failed both of you so badly by not seeing the severity of her apology. She never stopped being that neglected at 5 years old. Okay, I mean, it's not like dad chose to only raise the boys. I mean it in the sense that we only had one car. The boys were both in football, hockey, and lacrosse. They were always on the road. And when dad was there and he would take sister out on father-daughter dates 2 times a week, she would get upset if she didn't get a new toy or a new gadget. She loved these things called pixel checks, even when she stopped using them. And I wanted to play at 3. She suddenly became very possessive over them, and it month too. Mom was allowed to stay for weekends with us, and she would stay with her sister, watching movies, braiding hair, reading stories, etc. I honestly don't think that is neglect. They stepped in when she showed worsening signs, and I was never ever alone with my sister because of the pillow incident. They took her to therapy, and the doctors gave her a clean bill of health. I honestly just think she's a master manipulator. Opie, in another comment to show you what she's like, she stole her fiancé from another girl she knew, all because she wanted him and didn't care about the other girl. Therapists often wait until a person is over 18 to diagnose BPD, hoping that a child will grow out of the behaviors of an adult. People with BPD are often master manipulators and can fool therapists by masking their behaviors, lying about their actions, and lying about how they feel in a very believable way. Almost like an actor playing a role. They always have a reason in their heads for why they are doing what they do, which can fool others who do not see both sides of the story. Well, as a PhD, I'm about to go down another rabbit hole. My sister will refuse to go to a doctor, though, unless it was to prove she was right all along. They didn't even let me have a LOL Lucy doll without stealing it and burning the damn thing. Going to NC seems to be the best option for people around those with untreated BPD. Don't feel bad about it. Your life will be much more peaceful without the drama and crazy accusations. Don't worry about getting your sister into therapy either. Therapy only works if you are honest and willing to change. Often people with BPD are neither. You should look into therapy for yourself. I did, and it really helped me. Along with reading forums for families dealing with these kinds of issues. Parents are often enablers who try to keep the family together out of a desire for normalcy. But having a disordered sibling is anything but normal. Once you recognize it's not normal, you can begin to heal. Oh yeah. Mom has a therapy session this Monday for the money and guilt trip thing. Her and her dad have couples therapy after I'm starting therapy on my own for a plethora of things. My brothers. Well, there are hundreds of kilometers away, so I don't know what's going on with them. And my sister is playing house. My little sister wasn't there when the argument happened. We made sure she had a play date with her friend from daycare. Update 3. 3 months later. Hey everyone. I figured I would update you since it's been a very long time. I apologize. I lost the log into this account, but just found it. So on to the update. Family therapy is going really well. My 2 brothers were given temporary leave to come back to Canada. They were both stationed overseas for a bit. I believe they have to go back after this to help the process along. Our family is getting back on track, and my mom and I are closer than ever. It honestly feels like I have my best friend back. As for my sister, honestly, I don't know what's going on with her. A friend of mine still follows her social media, and everything seems well. The wedding was moved up to November 26th instead of December 17th, like she originally planned. She and her fiancé have bought a place, apparently, and this is rumored she's pregnant. She's cut all of us off. And her fiancé. His family is talking as HD about us, but we're holding strong. In other more exciting news, I'm loving Ottawa. I go back home once a month for in-person therapy, but I also have 3 virtual sessions monthly on top of that. My oldest brother's getting married, so while I lost a terrible sister, I gained an amazing sister. She's so sweet. Texts me every couple of days, gets me Uber, and eats orders when I'm down despite being provinces away. She's so sweet. She asked if I would feel comfortable being her mom. She's an only child and her mom passed away, and I agree. So by this time next year, I'll have an official new sister. There's not a whole lot else to say. But I also have a boyfriend. He's in the army too. Couldn't get away from it, I guess. And very supportive and loving. Our 1-month anniversary is in January, and I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, thank you so much, Reddit. You are all amazing, beautiful, and soulful humans, and I hope you all have prosperous, healthy, and fruitful lives. I love you all. Sincerely cute. Update 5. Hello, everyone. A lot of people wanted to know what happened at the wedding yesterday, so I will provide the update. My family and I were banned from going, but my cousins and friends and her husband's family filled me in. So, not a whole lot happened at the ceremony. The Mog mother of groom showed up in an off-white dress, and a few people brought their kids, despite it being a child-free ceremony. But no true drama happened until the reception. I somewhat feel bad for my sister because of this, but the MOG invited one of the groom's exes, I guess, to hope that it would break them up, but it didn't work. She tried to get between my sister and her now husband, but her husband and I give him props for this. Told her to leave. Honestly, all around it wasn't dramatic. They made it to the altar and are leaving for their honeymoon today or tomorrow. But one thing that was confirmed is that my sister is definitely pregnant at the end of the wedding speeches. The groom said his with a slideshow, and the last slide was an ultrasound picture and baby. Last name. Sorry, it isn't much of an update.